So quite often, a lot of people would come to me and ask about the automated bid option within Google AdWords. Quite a few of them would have tried CPA bids and would be under the impression that you actually pay when the conversion happens. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about how CPA bids actually work. Do you actually pay when the conversion happens, or there's some other calculation that Google does at the back end? So once you're creating a search campaign, within the bidding section, you've got two options. One is the automated bid section, and the other one is manual CPC bidding. So in the automated bid section, you have something like target CPA bid. You have something like target ROS. ROAS stands for return on ad spend, and then you have quite few others like maximize clicks, maximize impression share, and those kind of other metrics as well. So let's try and understand, does CPA bid really exist within the AdWords platform? So in a typical search campaign, when you've created a campaign, you've created ad groups, you've had few keywords within your ad groups. In the manual CPC method, what you do is you bid for each of these keywords. They all could be same, or you could have different bids for each of these keywords. And you actually pay on per click model when you're creating a campaign yourself and bidding manually. So when you leave it on automated bid and you leave bidding for Google and you've chosen target CPA bid as an option, so you assume that you would pay only when a conversion happens. While in reality, the amount of money which is spent is not related to the conversion. So let's say I've set a target CPA of 300 rupees. So my assumption is I'll end up spending 300 rupees per conversion. So to actually try a CPA bid, it is recommended that you should have had 15 conversions in the last 30 days, so that there is some data for Google AdWords algorithm to analyze every individual keyword's performance and evaluate which keyword will contribute to a conversion, what kind of search pattern will contribute to a conversion. So basically, Google uses a machine learning algorithm at the back end and tries to interpret on which keyword there is a likelihood of conversion to happen versus something else. So let's compare when you bid, when you are on a manual bid situation and when you leave it on to Google. So when you are on a manual bid situation, let's say these are the set of keywords that you've been bidding yourself, and you might have had different bids. So let's say 20 here, 25 here, 35, 45, and 25. And you might have different reasons of having different bid for all these keywords, or you might have each the same keyword for all these keywords. So when you enter into an auction, you pay money depending on the competition level there, the ad which is right beneath you with respect to the ad rank and the query score. But however, when you bid yourself, you bid on all these keywords because you've chosen them as a part of your ad group. But when you leave the same on a target CPA bid method and you leave it for Google to decide, and you've set a target of 300 rupees for Google as a CPA target. So what Google's algorithm does is it analyzes the past conversions with respect to these keywords. And let's say if Google's data analyzes and says, okay, this keyword is not going to contribute in conversion depending on the historical data. So maybe Google might not bid on your behalf for this keyword. And if Google realizes that this is a keyword on which there is a high likelihood of the conversion happening, so Google is going to bid on your behalf. Now that you had bid 45 rupees earlier as a manual CPC bid, but when Google is going to bid on your behalf, if Google feels that the bidding has to be on 90 rupees so that the ad appears somewhere on the top, because if the machine learning algorithm says that the top position is going to convert into, it has a more chances of converting into a conversion, while your 45 rupees bid was something like fourth position. So Google will go ahead and increase your bid to 90 at the back end. The ad appears here on the top. A user clicks on your ad, visits a website, does not end up into a conversion. You still end up paying money for the click. So when you're bidding on CPA bid, you would still pay for clicks and not for acquisition. So what Google says is, if you're bidding on a CPA method, try this as an experiment for 30 days. Compare it to what you've done yourself in the past, as in when you were bidding manually. So compare the data of your manual bidding campaign and Google CPA bid campaign. If Google CPA bid campaign is better for you, is performing better for you, you might stick around with CPA, or you might go back to your manual CPC bid. This is what Google also recommends. However, when you're looking at a target CPA bid, and let's say if the Google algorithm works better for you in terms of lowering this CPA cost. So let's say while you were manually bidding yourself and your cost per acquisition was something like 450 rupees, and you set a target of 300 rupees for Google, Google might be able to get this conversion to you at 400 rupees. But this does not necessarily mean that your campaign is optimized, because you will also have to look at, you brought down the conversion cost per acquisition, but let's say if the number of conversions also go down drastically, so that's where you have to take a call whether you want to take this, you want to continue with a CPA bid wherein your actual CPA cost has come down by 50 rupees, but let's say the overall number of conversions, if that comes down by 20-25%, so does that actually affect the profitability of your business or not, or how much of it will have an impact on the overall revenue? So from my experience perspective, businesses where you have niche audiences and you try a CPA bid, Google might be able to get you a conversion at a lesser cost, but then the absolute number of conversions comes down drastically, because what happens in the Google's bidding system is Google will be very conservative in terms of bidding on these keywords, while you have a very niche audience. So sometimes too much of analysis or analytics in lead generation for niche audiences might not be a great idea. So while you bid for CPA, you are actually paying for CPC even on an automated system. So you might actually end up spending more than 300. However, Google says that the algorithm will try to reach out to an average, but then there are a few things which are beyond the control of Google in terms of the ad copies, in terms of the landing pages, in terms of the competition coming into the system and moving out of the system. So because of those uncertainties, this CPA bid cannot be a fixed tenet for Google to abide by. And similarly, when you bid on ROAS, there is not much of difference between a CPA bid and an ROAS bid. CPA is cost per acquisition, ROAS is return on ad spend. It's one and the same thing, except for here in a CPA bid, you're talking about absolute number of conversions. In a return on ad spend bid, you're talking about the value of those conversions. But then eventually you would end up paying for clicks at the back end. Google will be bidding on your behalf on CPC bid and will be competing with the other advertisers on the search engine. So while you run on an automated bid system, anytime that you run your campaigns on an automated bid system, it is always going to be CPC at the back end. So you might try this as an experiment and see if this performs better. You can continue with this system, or you can move to a manual CPC bid method, which you have been managing for some time.